Okay, if I can get your attention, first of all, I want to welcome you all to New Jersey Motorsports Park for the MotoAmerica season finale. We're joined here today by MotoAmerica COO Chuck Aksland and Daytona International Speedway track president Frank Kelleher. That's Kelleher. That's the last time I'm going to say it. You're Frank from now on, okay? Although it's our last round of the 2024 season, it's never too soon to talk about the next season, which is 2025, and that's why we've gathered you here today. I'm going to get started with Chuck Aksland, MotoAmerica COO, and Chuck, you've got a pretty big announcement for us today that I think riders, teams, and fans are going to be excited about.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, and welcome to New Jersey Motorsports Park, Frank, and our final event of the season. So appreciate you coming out. Then the announcement is that we've reached a 3-year agreement with Daytona International Speedway and MotoAmerica to continue to operate together the running of the Daytona 200. So we've had a successful first 3 years. We feel we've seen some good participation increases, spectator increases, vendor increases, and I think both of us see a lot of potential going forward. So we're very proud to continue to be part of the history of the Daytona 200.
Okay, Frank, let's talk to you for a second here. We obviously, Daytona must be happy with what MotoAmerica has been able to do in the few years that we've been back there. But what is having MotoAmerica on the schedule and the 200? What does that mean to Daytona International Speedway?
It means a ton. I mean, when you think about the legacy, the history of the Daytona 200, international prominence, the dominance, the glamour of it all, it is a extremely important race, not only to the World Center of Racing, but to the France family. And being able to partner with Chuck and with MotoAmerica, they're the best in the business. The riders that they bring, the professionalism, the show, the safety elements, we can't think of a better partner. So it only makes sense after 3 years of working together where through this partnership, we have doubled attendance in those 3 years. Let's lock it up for more years to come and keep growing what we have built.
Now, obviously, it does help with fan attendance to have something like this in place where they can count on something for 3 years. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, I mean, I'll relate it to any event that we host at the World Center of Racing. The second the Daytona 500 is sold out, that gives myself, the team, and the industry to really start focusing now on growing the event and making it better and elevating it. So for us to have the comfort to know that we are partnered up for 3 years and we can start new creative initiatives. We can start talking today of what do we want to test in 2025 with the aspiration to make it even bigger in 2026. So you can really go deep in those growth conversations when you don't have to worry about, oh, we're in a renewal year. Are we going to renew? What's happening? These are our partners. We're in this business together, and we want to continue to see this event grow and get back to that prominence that it had for many, many decades.
Now, it seems like the France family has always had kind of a soft spot in their heart somewhere for the Daytona 200. Does that play into all this? I mean, does that make it easier to get something like this done because they want to do it?
I mean, easier, yes, to get it done. But I'll share a quick story. So I've now been the president of the World Center of Racing for 3.5 years. So 2022 was my very first full speed weeks in this role. Record-setting Roar before the Rolex, record-setting Rolex 24, an extremely early sellout of the Daytona 500. Our Supercross race that year was the largest race of date. And it wasn't planned, but I had a encounter with Mr. France, Jim France, in the hallway. And we had a very brief conversation of how the season has been going so far, how Speed Weeks has been going so far. And he wasn't dismissive. There was appreciation, but he didn't want to talk about what we already had done and what was in the rear view. He was pointing out to the infield. So now it was Supercross had just ended and we're getting ready for the Daytona 200. And he pointed out to the infield and reminded me of what it looked like in the 70s and in the 80s. And the direction was, and we need to get back there. So it is more than just another event on our schedule. To Mr. France, to our board, to everyone down in Daytona Beach, the prestige of the Daytona 200 is very important. So we are thrilled to be working with MotoAmerica for years to come.
So we can get started next week.
Let's go. That's why I'm here.
All right, I'm going to open it up to some questions now. Anybody?
Chuck, do you continue as the race being a non-point race and an open tire race? Are there going to be changes to the Daytona 200 format?
We haven't considered that, to run it any differently than we have the first 3 years. When I first met Frank and Mandrew Gurkis in 2021, I believe it was, what kind of spurred us getting back involved with the Daytona 200 was the next gen super sport rules were going to come into effect. And I had told these guys that I thought that would open up the door to more manufacturers, getting more European riders over, and eventually more fans involved. And another element that obviously is very unique to the Daytona 200 is pit stops and the tire war. And obviously we are a Dunlop supported series, but at that time I had went to Mike Buckley at Dunlop, and he kind of signed off on the vision of keeping it an open tire and having that tire competition as part of the race. So we don't envision that changing in the near future.
You mentioned European riders, and this is a very important thing that's happening for South America, because Daytona 200 for the Latin American countries is a very important race. It's what you want to go to when you go to USA. So I'm glad to say for the South Americans that we're very proud that MotoAmerica are going to be more involved in that, and then we will be covering it for the years that you have it. So it's great news for us. Thank Jimmy.
Hey Frank, I got a question. It's like about party conversation for you. But when I don't go to a lot of parties, but when I was younger, if I would be somewhere and somebody asked about motorcycle racing, and now I do it now that I work for MotoAmerica, it's like, well, we're like NASCAR for motorcycles. It's kind of the analogy we make. And I've always said to people, how I always say, how the Daytona 200 is the biggest event in NASCAR. They start off with like their Super Bowl.
That's right.
I've always felt like the Daytona 200 is like our Super Bowl too. Now that it's back with us, is that kind of what you think the way it is too? I mean, it's similar in a lot of ways.
You nailed the vision, right? Daytona 500 is the Great American Race. The Daytona 200 is the Great American Motorcycle Race. And when you go back into the history book from 1961, the very first time that the green flag dropped at the World Center of Racing, to the heyday in the 70s and the 80s, we want to bring the party back. We want to bring the VIP back. And we're entering into this, right, with vulnerability. The world changes, things change. Where we want to go, we're going to have to challenge ourselves to evolve and to look at things differently, and definitely bringing back the party, right? I've been working for the France family since 2002, been part of Bike Week since then, and you kind of have seen the highs, you've seen the ups, you've seen the downs. Just in March in general, spring break was one thing decades ago, it's different now. So we need to be eyes wide open to what our consumers want and how we're marketing it and how we get fans in the gates. This announcement is very important for me today and for the World Center of Racing, but I'm also thrilled to be here this weekend as a fan, and thinking of the gentlemen that are out there that are going for championships this weekend are also Daytona winners. So for us to continue to be more authentic in the space and to show up, I think is just really going to help grow things as well.
I just have one follow-up. This is completely different, Frank, and I'll ask you this again instead of Chuck, just because it's related to Daytona Bike Week. So a few years ago, we had the COVID year that it canceled the Daytona 200. We're off now. They're celebrating their 84th, and we're going to be our 83rd. Is there any way that we can align that again somehow?
So I'm glad you brought that up, because I was texting our PR comms people in Daytona this morning as I was going over some notes, and I'm like, just so I've got it right, this is the 84th, but this is the 83rd. And it's like, yes, the COVID year. So is there a strategy today to sync them up? No, but that's a great call out that it probably is something that maybe we can talk about down the road.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you guys for coming. And Frank, we wouldn't be against some if you could bring some Florida sunshine here in a minute.
Yeah, I joked with the guys. I was texting them as I was on the way up. I'm like, I'm coming up. They're like, for what? I'm like, well, I got a big announcement. I said, I got a suitcase full of Florida sunshine, just like that. So they all looked at me today and yesterday with the evil eye, like, where's it at, dude? Like, I think it got lost in my connection flight, but we'll see if it can make it to the hotel for tomorrow.
All right. Well, thank you both and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.